So, Matthew, we were talking a little bit about how health and the dynamics of life go into how you run your business and how you organize your business. Can you talk a little bit about what you do and what you have brought to people, as it were, and how it's helped their business?
Yeah, for sure. For the last 12 years, we've actually helped people with their website and optimizing the user experience through the psychological ways that people interact with the website. And over the years, about 5 years ago, I went through, I didn't think I was going to go down this road, but I went through a really bad breakup. And I remember saying to myself, man, this hurts so bad. I want to figure out how to never make this happen again,
Yeah.
and realized that I was the common denominator in the things that had happened in my life. And so I really went down deep into understanding the psyche of the entrepreneur, because that is who we deal with 7 days a week, 24/7, being one myself, and understanding that a lot of times we'll achieve success and still feel very empty inside. And I wanted to know how we could be happy on the journey instead of waiting until we got to the destination that we thought would make us happy.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And as listeners know, I just went through a stroke. And when you go through something like that, a breakup, whatever it is, you're grasping onto so many different levels or layers that you're trying to make sense of different situations. So like one of the things that I struggled with a great deal is my mindset and how do I carry on from here? How do I keep doing what I was doing, which is part of it. I have to completely change the way that I was doing or letting myself carry out my business. Can you talk a little bit about that mindset and the things that you go through when you're in those dark areas and ways to be able to get through them first?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people have always asked me, because I've been able to be successful in multiple different businesses, and they're like, what do you think makes that possible? And I will say that for some reason, every single morning I get up, I think I'm going to win. And it doesn't matter if I haven't for the last year or 2 years in a row. Every morning when I get up, I think that's the day that I'm going to figure it out. It's going to be okay. And that has served me really well, because I've never had that mindset of I'm going to quit. And probably, let me lay some context for this. During that journey of me figuring out what was the issue for me, I grew up in a very violent home as a child. And so I had developed a lot of unhealthy self belief. And I think the majority of the reasons why I created success again and again was because I was always looking for something outside of me to make me feel better. And the only way that I thought that could happen was if I create the next thing or create the next thing. What I realized was that it was really an internal job, not an external job. And the reason why that success never made me feel better was because I was avoiding the work that needed to be on my own self belief.
Yeah.
And one way that I can illustrate that where people will understand is, why is it when the CEO of a company gets coaching, the whole company does better? Because typically it's the mindset at the top of the company that is the bottleneck. And going down deep, and when I started sharing my story with other entrepreneurs, because that's really who I deal with every day, all day, they started sharing their story. And what was funny was almost every entrepreneur that I talked to had this trauma as a child. And I thought, what makes this such a hot spot of people who have dealt with the same thing? And I
Right.
thought to myself, the definition of trauma is a feeling of loss of control. And when in business do you actually feel like you're in control? Never. And so in order to be able to function effectively inside of that environment, you probably had to have learned some sort of a coping mechanism that you have that allows you to deal with trauma. And I'm not saying that it's healthy. A lot of us are workaholics, or a lot of us don't know how to shut it off, or a lot of us are looking for the next shiny object to make us feel better. And so when I realized that, I thought, okay, if I can work on my own self belief, that's going to make the journey fun instead of putting off the fun until I hit some projected goal that I think is going to do it. I would rather just be happy every day, knowing that I'm working towards something and that's fulfilling in itself. And so that was really the catalyst for me realizing that business is the ultimate inner game. Like when you show up at work, your business is going to show you where you're not good enough, or where you're not
Mhm.
doing enough, or where you need to get better. And if you find a way to do that within yourself, business becomes a lot more fun and a lot easier.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious from a mindset standpoint, what are some things that you have realized about yourself or as things that you look for, whether that be things that you're currently doing or emotions that you might feel or doing different projects just to do different projects? I'm curious, is there anything that you found that connects the dots between what you're currently experiencing compared to the thing that you might be doing right there? Does that make sense? Where you're currently spending your time, does it make any sense to evaluate yourself?
Yeah, I do. I do think so. And in fact, I'm in the process of doing that. I think it's an ongoing thing. It's not like a once and done. I had a tendency to say yes to too many people and have too many projects going. And I've noticed that has started robbing me of the joy that I had in
Mhm.
business. And yeah, becoming a lot more aware of when it doesn't feel good in my body, that there's probably a shift that's necessary, because in the past, I would just grind through it and the result would always be the bare minimum, or it would be good enough. And what I've realized is when I actually listen to what feels good and what doesn't feel good, and or have the hard conversations or make the hard decisions to clear my plate, the projects that do get my attention always do much better, much, much better.
Yeah,
And I
that's
think another thing that I realize is we all have this internal thermostat of what we think is what we're worthy of. And so, say our internal thermostat is 70 degrees. If all of a sudden my business starts doing better and now it's like 80, 90 degrees because it's doing better than I thought it would, typically, if we're not aware of it, we'll turn the air conditioning on and cool it back down to 70 degrees. Or business starts to wane off and start to struggle. We're like, and we put in the work that we get it back to that 70 degrees. So that just raised the question, how do I raise my thermostat? How can I handle more without sabotaging? And what I discovered is the way that we raise our own internal thermostat is having 100% integrity with ourselves. So it's easy to do things that we say we're going to do for other people, but it's also easy to not do the things that we say that we're going to do for ourselves. And so I discovered that when I am in 100% integrity with myself, if I say I'm going to get up every morning and exercise, and I do that, all of a sudden my thermostat is raised. And if I say I'm going to eat good and take care of my health, my thermostat is raised if I do that consistently over a period of time. And I think where I realized that was I read a book by Jeff Olson called The Slight Edge. And it wasn't about anything profound or these new discoveries, but it was literally the daily consistency of habits. And I read that book 3 times in a row over a 6-month period, and I doubled my revenue. And
sure.
I was like, okay, I'm done reading books to feel good. I'm going to start applying what I'm learning and integrating what I'm learning instead of just being a wealth of knowledge, but no action. And so
Exactly.
taking that action for yourself daily will raise your thermostat and gives you a lot better success.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I would like to hear your thoughts on taking the action that you say that you're going to do. So many entrepreneurs, so many people across the board don't do what they say that they're going to do. What does that mean to you when you hear that people aren't taking the actions, aren't taking the things that they say that they're going to do forward? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would just say I'm not perfect at it by any means. I've got some things right and I still get others wrong. And the way that I view it is it's their discovery. I coach a lot of entrepreneurs, and my job is not to give them the answer or tell them what I think. It's to help them find what's true for
Mhm.
them. And so typically the reason they're not taking that action is because they have some story that's buried that needs to be surfaced. And you don't get that story by giving them advice. You get that story by asking them questions that helps them find what's true for them. And when I do it that way, the results are amazing. When I try to give advice, that makes me feel good, but it doesn't necessarily get them the result. When they discover it within themselves, they're much more likely to take action and the results are amazing.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So we've talked a lot about the entrepreneur, the mindset and all that, which is extremely important, but you also are an accomplished business owner as well. Can you talk about, let's jump into what you do currently right now, and then how that evolved and how that grew from there.
Yeah, I actually ran a commercial concrete business for 23 years. And I went to a Tony Robbins event and he was selling a program called Money Masters, which was each month he would highlight somebody that was online making money, was doing really well with online sales. This is about 12 years ago. And at that point, I was on the road about 200 days a year pouring concrete all around the country and didn't enjoy my life. But I thought that was the necessary evil of what I had chosen. And so I started learning how to sell stuff online while I was on the road and developed a business that replaced my income for concrete. And when I did that, I went full time online. And then I started helping other people optimize their website so that they could make money online and fulfill their dreams. And I got a lot more satisfaction out of that than I did living on the road. And
Yeah.
yeah, now what we do is we help people who are in e-commerce, people that have a shopping cart for their business, optimize their store so that it makes more sales. Most people are always going, oh, I need more traffic. I need more traffic. And what I thought about was the average e-commerce converts around 2 to 3%. And that means 100 people raised their hand, came to your website, and only 3 people bought it, best case scenario. What about the 97 that raised their hand and left? I'm going to go find 3 of those 97 that I can convince to buy. And I doubled your business on the same ad spend. And that's literally what we built our business around, that concept for
That's
the last
interesting.
10 years.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm curious if you've ever thought of other avenues as well, because one of the things that I'm doing right now, again, trying to reinvent myself and what that looks like. One of the things that we're challenged with is having people fill out a type form from what we're using is LinkedIn. So we're changing how they're getting to that point of filling out the form. We're changing the questions. Have you ever focused on different areas besides only the e-commerce side of things, or
Yes.
is e-commerce?
Yeah, nope. We definitely we developed a lot of quiz funnels and pulse purchase surveys and all that. The one thing that I really believe that's made our business continue to work year after year is that it's very psychological principles of how people make decisions, how we get them to find a point of clarity to where they feel good and they trust. And so, yeah, that is exactly what we do. I'm very product agnostic, very data driven. And so we're always looking at the data and figuring out how to reverse engineer to make educated decisions on how we can improve it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about the process that you take people through to evaluate what they're currently doing and these are options or these are
Yeah, for sure. We audit their analytics to start with, and then we look at their store. And over the last 12 years, probably ran over $1 billion through our shopping carts. About 6 years ago, we hit the 600 million mark. And so I'm sure in the last 6 years, we've hit the other 400 million, but I just quit counting because it's like at some point that number doesn't really mean anything.
yeah,
We've obviously got really good at what we do. And so just saying a bigger number inflates my ego and doesn't
sure.
really make me more effective. Yeah, looking at the data is the very first thing. And then we also look at the user journey, and we've seen enough data that we can make some pretty good decisions on where the issues are happening. And then we just go there first.
Yeah, yeah. And has AI helped you, advance this along at all, or would you say that?
Unbelievable amount. Yeah, it's totally changed our business in the last 24 months. I really believe within the next 12 months we'll be an AI company because the amount of data and the way that we can analyze it now with AI is so superior to the way that we've done it manually in our head
Mhm.
for the last 10 years. We've had 3 or 4 of our biggest wins ever in the last several months using AI in order to get these wins for our clients.
Yeah, that's interesting. And can you elaborate on any of the wins? 'Cause what I'm trying to do is say this person is in this situation, they're struggling with this. Let's try this other thing.
Yeah.
Like, is
So
that
I'll tell you the number one thing that's works for us for years and is probably accounted for 6 of our 10 biggest wins is on the thank you page. We ask a question of the people who just spent money with you. And we say, what was the one thing that almost made you not buy? About 30% of your buyers will answer that. And then you take that data and compile it and you go
I
back
do that?
and fix those things and you will make more money. You'll have happier customers and the user experience will be better.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that information feeds all the way through. So like the more people that go through that whole
Yep.
cycle,
And
uh,
it run all the time because things are always changing and we want to know what the new bottlenecks are.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about the fulfillment process? Like, you know, what works today, what doesn't work today? Obviously, Amazon is one of those animals that everyone turns to and thinks that I should be able to use this, but they're still in the back of their mind. Does it actually work the way that people claim it to work?
Yeah, it doesn't because Amazon, people don't go there to shop, they go there to buy. So their conversion rate is 75 or 77%, where average e-commerce is 2 to 3%. It's a totally different, they've created a totally different business model. The good thing is people still like to buy from people and there's trillions of dollars being spent with regular everyday people. I think Amazon, for every dollar that's spent in e-commerce, they account for 52 to 53 cents of that.
Huh.
There's still an entire Amazon out there and small business that function and do very well.
Yeah. And talk a little bit about the small business aspect. Let's just call it I sell greeting cards online, for instance. Do you have a message for people like, is this a big enough vertical that we should go after? Is this something that I believe in? Like, how do you qualify what you are offering to people is something that, they want? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's very subjective based off of the entrepreneur themselves. I don't believe that businesses have business problems. I believe they have people problems. And what I mean by that is I can probably go find 5 greeting card companies that are doing millions of dollars a year. And
Mhm.
so the market is there. It's a matter of if you can put the people in place that will create a business where people will choose you over the other ones.
Yeah.
And I love seeing competition because to me, I believe, and I've been able to consistently and predictably over the last 12 years, create enormous businesses through competing with the people who thought that they couldn't be competed with because they don't understand the data. And yeah, I have zero fear of any market. The only fear that I have is, am I going to put together the right people that can actually capitalize on the idea?
Yeah, that makes sense. You've mentioned the data a couple of times now. What things do you typically look at when you're looking to get into an industry or get into a business? What are the things that say, yes, this is an opportunity or this is business that we should be pursuing at this
Yeah,
point?
yeah, I definitely believe that you want to be able to have a high margin because cost of ads is continually going up.
And when you say a high margin, like where's the breaking point for that?
Yeah, I think realistically, I would want 2 or 3 times cost of goods that
Yeah.
we could sell it for, because probably another third is going to be spent in the ads. And then that leaves the other 30% for admin and operating the business efficiently. And then with economies of scale, everything becomes more profitable if you do it correctly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like your business relies on ad spend first to be able to drive traffic to a web page, which then you have the conversion rate, and you should be able to understand what that is. They go through the checkout process, get this thank you page at the end, and then the whole cycle starts over again. Is that
Yeah, and once you figure that part of the process out, now how do you get them to spend more, and how do you get them to come back and buy again? And businesses, I really think that a business is in the relationship business, and most entrepreneurs suffer is they don't want to talk to their customers. And anybody that is willing to do that and create a relationship with their customers is going to understand, if they listen to them, what they're looking for, and then they can give them what they're looking for, and that creates rabid fans. So I get asked probably 2 or 3 times a month, if you're going to start an e-com business, what would you do it in? And I tell everybody the exact same thing. I would probably do it in the pet niche. You can get very good margins. The owners will typically spend more on their dog than they will themselves, more on their dog than they do their children. And I've thought through that process too and wondered why. And it sounds a little morbid, but I actually believe that most pet owners, that's the only place that they actually get unconditional love. And so that to me explains why they're irrationally spend on their pet. Most buying decisions are made emotionally and then justified with logic. And so I would probably start in the pet industry. The other thing about that is most pet products are consumable, so that they're going to need to buy again and again. You're not selling them something once and then you're done.
yeah?
And yeah, I would look for a few things like that to make the decision.
What does that look like as well from a I need this to get started? Do you need Spotify? Do you need this? Do you need these tools? What does that look like from
Yeah, I think that's too broad of a question. It really depends on the market that you're going to go after and how you're going to serve them. I typically prefer specialty stores, not general purpose or general market. So I wouldn't have a pet store that had 60 products on it. I don't want to compete in that market. I want to be the one or two things that I can get really good traction with and people know us for that. And I think the better that you hone in on that, the more you're going to be able to talk to your ideal customer, to where if you can explain their problem better than they can, they automatically assume that you're the solution and they want to do business with you.
Yeah, that makes sense. So from your standpoint, this pet industry and the product, if you focus in on specific products and you got the flow correct with credit cards, payment processing, all of that, you probably would have a better chance of making it than having too many products on the page.
Yeah. And then you got to worry about inventory and product fulfillment and shipping times and just all kinds of stuff that happens when you have a whole bunch of different things. Shopify makes it very easy to open up a store and put products on it and test markets. We've certainly tried several that didn't work. And for us, that's still considered a win because we take that off of our plate of ideas to go after, and we move on until we find the one that we've been able to scale.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. What else am I forgetting from a technological standpoint? These are the types of businesses, these are the tools, these are the things that we're doing in our company right now. What else is there? What do people normally get hung up on, but shouldn't get hung up there?
Yeah, that varies too, but I would say the biggest difficulty is getting eyeballs to the website, the right eyeballs. And so figuring out how to find your market matters just as much as having a good product, because I've seen a lot of really poor products do really well because they know how to get the buyers to the site. And then I've seen really good products never get any traction because they couldn't get in front of the right audience. I really think the audience matters a lot too.
So, is there anything upfront that the owner should do to identify or try getting the right audience, or know that they already have the right audience in front of them?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different ways to test interest before you make a huge investment. And yeah, we've actually even launched products and sold a bunch of them that we didn't have yet, and then just refunded their money and said, hey, we sold out, but we'll notify you when we're back in stock if we think it's going to be a winner. Or we refunded their money and said, hey, we're sold out and we're probably not going to bring this product back. And so, yeah, there's different ways to do it for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, this is a conversation I feel like can go on and on. I already asked this, but I want to ask it again just to make sure that there isn't anything that I've missed or anything that you're thinking about that I should throw this in. But is there anything along the lines of the e-commerce platform or website, somebody is interested in these methods? Is there anything that I haven't covered that I should have covered, would you say?
No, but I definitely think the most important aspect is the entrepreneur. I've seen really good entrepreneurs take a really poor business and make it something great. And I've seen other entrepreneurs had some money, bought a business and totally ruined it. So I think the common denominator between the successful businesses are the operators and how they approach the business, how they treat the customer. What I will tell you is because we deal with a lot of very successful brands, the one common denominator with all of them is they treat customer service like they're taking care of their mom. And they bend over backwards to make sure it's right and do everything that they can. And that builds lifetime value.
Yeah, that makes sense. Real quick too, can you talk a little bit about, what that means to have lifetime customers that you can keep coming back to again and again, or you've even identified this is a market that I currently have. Can you talk about what that does to a business?
Yeah, it gives you stability because no matter what, everything's cyclical. We see good times and bad times, even in great businesses. And the businesses that can weather those storms are the ones that have the relationship with their customers, that they can still survive when they can't feed the top of funnel near as much as during a time when things are good. Right now, as an example, the last year, e-commerce has struggled a little bit just because of the economy and people are tighter with their budgets. But the businesses that are going to be, that survive this are going to be that much better on the other side. I've watched it 3-4 times over the last 12 years. It's almost like this cycle of cleaning out all the poor business operators, and the ones that have done a good job tends to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. On the other side, they do even better.
Yeah. So the market right now is not, we'll call it 100%
Yeah, it's not
because of the way that you've done things before in the past, but yeah, it might be because of the way that the cycle currently works. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. If people want to learn more about you or your products or services, how would they reach out and get in touch?
Yeah, our website is buildgrowscale.com, and my email is matt@buildgrowscale.com. You can certainly email me or go to our website, look at what we do, and there's a way to book a call and I'll jump on and look at your website with you, talk through what your challenges are and see if we can provide some value.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you, Matthew. Yeah. This is one of those subjects that could go on forever. Thanks for your time and thanks for the insights that you shared with us today.
Thanks for having me.